So what we were saying is that we want to eat low calorie food. So that's non-starchy vegetables. So a quick, easy way to do that is to fill half of your plate up with non-starchy food, vegetables at meal times. And so that's just a real quick, easy way. And I'll send you some information on that as well. Um, so yeah, so now we've gone over all these things on the calorie levels and different things. Um, let's see here. So the next part would be is I think we often talk about exercise. I think a lot of people believe that you can just exercise off calories. So um, exercising, maybe there's certain people that go out and they'll run 5 miles a day or 10 miles a day or 20 miles, whatever it is. Um, some of the and then eat whatever they like. That's not necessarily the case, and I've personally have experienced that. Um, we can't just exercise off weight, and so and then there's some research that suggests that as well. So I think what happens oftentimes is when we just increase our exercise, so we're exercising more, we actually get more hungry, and we tend to eat more. And so then all the exercise that we did is actually for nothing. So I think what the important thing to do is to check in with yourself when you're eating, make sure you're not overeating, um, and make sure we're not going too much over on our calories. Um, I think that's a real important thing. Um, and just not having the mindset, oh, well, tomorrow I'll go and I'll run 10 miles and I'll get that off. And I've been a culprit of that myself. So I think that's real important. But we also, on the other end of that, it's so important to exercise. And I'm not an exercise physiologist or a PT, but I can tell you the benefits of exercising. And there's just seen a lot of research recently where if people that are heavier body sizes, larger weight, if they exercise, they're less likely to have comorbidities significantly. Their cardiovascular systems are much more improved, and they have less likelihood of developing heart disease and those types of things. Um, on top of the psychological impacts of exercising, which are great. So it's so important to exercise, whether you do 30 minutes to an hour a day, which is kind of the recommendation for that, or 15 minutes. You're just walking. Whatever you can do, it's important to do to strengthen your muscles, your bones, and your heart, and your cardiovascular system. I think the combination between the two of moderating calories, monitoring that, as well as exercise will help bring off the weight and keep it off. Now, there's also a third part to all of this. So we have the calories, if you can think of it like that. Deficit, plus, minus, those types of things. We have the exercise, and then next we have the mindful eating or the intuitive eating. And that's going to be its own, we're going to talk about that next month or the month after. It's going to be one of its own topics because it's really important. So in a roundabout way, mindful eating is just making sure that we don't overeat. And this is a really important thing. So checking in with yourself, making sure that you have hunger, looking at your hunger cues, fullness scales, and those types of things. And so I think sometimes those are some of the reasons why we tend to overeat, is when we overeat and then we get more calories in. I think some people also struggle with certain things like sugar or salt, or some people really like fat in their diet, and they tend to overeat that. So that's also part of the mindful eating. For example, if somebody likes sugary things, are we taking time, maybe just think of a Hershey Kiss. Are we taking time to unravel it, put it, take a little bite of it, put it in our mouth, take a couple minutes after each bite, and just really getting the taste of it all? Or are we just walking by a dish and popping one in our mouth and then walking, continue to walk? That's an example of some of those cravings that people get, and how we can help kind of minimize some of those, but also feeling like we're getting what we need. And I think I've seen some good examples of how people can incorporate the things that they love. Let's see here. So, and then of course we'll talk more about mindful eating, getting rid of distractions when we eat, and those types of things. And then lastly, the next thing that we want to talk about is kind of why diets don't work. And then we'll wrap it up for this month. Diets don't work because typically there's just one food group that people will eat, or two food groups, or they'll get rid of a food group. So, growing up, I remember fat. We were really concerned about eating too much fat. So, what did they do? They add more sugar and more carbohydrates. And so everyone was avoiding fat. So we wanted, you always saw the label low fat. So that didn't work. We saw that. And then, as growing up again, we saw the people avoiding carbohydrates, and that's kind of still the phase that we're in, where people are, and started with the Atkins diet, just having minimal amount of carbohydrates. That kind of morphed into the paleo, and then now the keto diet, and I'm sure there's a ton of other diets out there. But again, they're minimizing or staying away from one food group, which we want to have a variety of foods and everything, and our body needs all those things. So I think what happens with those dieting is that people get tired of eating the same thing over and over again, and it's not sustainable. And so then people just stop, or they start binge eating, basically. And so that's what we want to try to avoid. So when we work together, we'll try to incorporate all the foods that you love, and just trying to really cue in on not overeating, or not having too big of a craving, and really work on those things. So, that's kind of it in a nutshell, and I apologize that there's 3 videos here. But we'll talk about all these and much more at our next discussion. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you at our next video chat. Thanks.